I don't start until you say we start. Hi everyone, good morning. Wow, a Brewers Conference meeting started early. That's hilarious, it's probably never happened before. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome everybody. We're so excited you're here. It's a packed house. It'll get nice and cozy in here today, but I promise there is cold refreshments on the way. Hey Scott, how's it going? We started without you. That was rude. With our guest speaker here. But anyway, everyone, I'm Megan Anderson with NZ Hops Limited. I am the business advisor to North America, which means that after this, you will reach out to Devin there in the back, who's our sales director for North America for NZ Hops. I just really help out with the business these days. And there's an amazing team of people here to talk to you today, not only about our high quality input material that we're bringing in and our high quality hops from New Zealand, but these amazing products that we're making in collaboration with Totally Natural Solutions and our amazing brewing partners. You're going to hear a little bit more about that today. We're going to be at booths 3437 and booth 1053 for those of you that want to meet with us afterwards. But again, I'm Megan. I've been in the brewing industry for about 16 years. I spent quite a while with Boston Beer Company, and then I got into the hops industry. And I was just so taken by that. I became a very early advocate of sustainable brewing practices and hopping because I was working on the ag side of it. And I saw that there was an incredible amount of biomass and waste, and I just couldn't wrap my head around that at an industrial scale. Even though I'd come from Boston Beer, unless you're in the brew house, you don't always have an appreciation for the level of biomass we put in our beer and what happens from that. So I started thinking about how can we be smarter about that? How can we be better? So this is something I've dreamed of for a couple years, is having something like this. So never give up on your dreams, because if you dream it, you can manifest it and bring people together and educate them about that. So it's so great. I took these sustainable hop products from NZ Hops and Totally Natural Solutions all across the US over the past couple of years. A lot of you have probably heard my speech or my spiel or been on Zoom with me, and if you haven't, we hope to be able to present these to you. But I got a Zoom call really early on in this process when I had some prototype oils from Pedro and Colin from the team at TNS. You'll hear from them today. And I'm like, who is this Scott? I have like a million calls today. Scott Janish, man, his name sounds familiar. We got done talking after he asked me these questions. Like, holy cow, that was Scott Janish. He's out looking for these products and he wants to learn about them, and these collaborations were born. So we're gonna do a bunch of cool stuff today. You guys are gonna taste some beers and you're gonna hear that. In fact, this was all born out of partnership and collaboration. So what's the one action as you, as our collaborative partners now, can take today when you go back to your brewery? Take these products, refine them, and try them in a flagship beer of yours or in something you're planning to release. And the reason I challenge you to do that beyond just taking a sample kit and playing around is this is a mark of risk management now in sustainability. We have proven in the case studies and the beers we will show you today that we can take a flagship commercial beer, deconstruct it, and reconfigure and rebuild it better than before because it's more sustainable for your brewery. And everybody wins. The people win, the planet wins, and your profits will win. So I challenge you guys to take that back with you today and taste it for yourself, because when it becomes personal in your beer, then you have an ability to refine it to a level other people cannot, and that you may not just pick up on or have that consciousness of when you're tasting it in a sample of somebody else's or playing with it on a bench top. So thanks for that. So this is a partnership born from NZ Hops Limited and Totally Natural Solutions. So a little bit about NZ Hops. This is a differentiator for us. 3 things you guys want to know besides these sustainable practices is this is diversity of growers. We're a 150-year-old co-op with 5th and 6th generation growers that are participating in bringing you guys the highest quality input material. So it is a diverse grower base, which is also great for sustainability. And but they're unified really in quality of purpose. So we send tons of hops here into the US, and because of you guys, we've been able to take very innovative products like Nectaron. You'll taste an amazing beer that Chris Shelton from Whole Foods has been brewing with Nectaron. We've taken these amazing new products and put them into the pathway to sustainability. So I want you guys to hear about that today. So finally, the third quality besides sustainability and diversified families and farms and varieties is that the highest quality inputs start with the best terroir. And New Zealand has many unique markers, and you taste them in the beers, and a couple of them stand out to me in that these are the cleanest hops you can buy. We typically don't spray these canopies with pesticides, and we also don't have the same insect and root rot problems that other countries face. So with these challenges, when you start with a higher quality input material, your entire value chain of sustainability becomes more valuable to you. So there's the one thing you can do and the three things that stand out about NZ hops. You're going to hear from the rest of our great speakers. But one bonus thing you guys can do. So you can go back and brew a beer for me. You know the three things that make us different. You can try out some Nectron. One bonus thing you can do is I left a card on your chairs about a program called Transcending Trauma. That is a program I've started in collaboration with Women of the Bevolution, and we're working in partnership with breweries and survivors of the Me Too movement to give the gift of meditation. So we're training breweries and survivors in meditation to lower stress, reduce anxiety, and bring everybody together in a more sustainable way. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Pedro. Come on up, Pedro. Dr. Pedro, and he's going to continue talking to you guys, and then we're going to get to taste some beer. So enjoy the show.
Well, thank you very much, Megan. Well done. Morning, everyone. I know you're looking forward for the goodies and the stars, so just bear with me for a 5-minute speech. And basically, well said, Megan. It's really describing what, if you're thinking about what about NZ, New Zealand is really the terroir, the precursors to find in hops that will allow us then to transition to a technology processing. And this is where we play our part as a technology collaboration, and that's been the success so far. I'm Pedro Oliveira, I'm the Technical Director for Totally Natural Solutions. I have a crowd there, as you've seen. Our MD is around, disguised. And really, just out of interest, can you just, any of you that used hop oils so far, raise your hand? Right, okay, not that many. Okay, so you'll be interested to know, for those of you who haven't, that over the last 2 years, a lot of the feedback, I could say it's cost saving, but actually, do you know which one is the highest positive feedback that we actually positively could contribute and save a lot of beer? It's actually health and safety challenges. It has to do with how easy a handling is, a downstream line at your brew house. But you know, it's just 1, 2, 3, and we have a slide to back it up. But in terms of avoiding oxygen intake, avoiding strachaldehydes to come back, and then suddenly everything falls into place where you save beer, but you actually have in a high gravity a lot of input increase just by having that concentrated, potent guys like this. Yeah. So I think. Why? Well, the partnership and why using hop oils? I mean, that's easy, health and safety, a lot of handling and easily dealing, but most of all, you forget about the rule of thumb of 30%, 60% yield. Suddenly you have a dosing that it gives you what you dose in, it's 100%, This is as powerful, and it's all about bringing efficiency to your brew. Suddenly we make that work ahead of you, whether it's bringing natural isomerized products, whether it's concentrating that on a natural green technology way to bring you what actually the functional actives, and then you'll start to see the beer losses reducing, but also control better the year to year, which is also a pain. Every year you have a seasonal and the volatiles, how it's a harvest, you don't know what to expect, and then suddenly we have a year-to-year standardized product where you have controlled through analytical and sensory validated projects where you can say, okay, where are my terpenes levels, the fruitiness, and you'll hear more from this guy here, as you well know. And it suddenly is not just replacing necessarily your hops, is actually bringing something else, and that's the perfect example you'll hear in one of the brews. Actually, is the fullest measure, and a lot of good things come from hybrid brews. As you know, you can use the T90s, but then add that extra complexity or bring that lingering, outlasting, hoppy forward taste. What's special about Totally Natural Solutions? You know, you would wonder, what do we bring to the table? Well, it's actually basically a patented technology. So we have that patented. It's not about only the extract. It's actually going through the extraction and fractionate that into, you know, what we call the salami slice. And suddenly you have a pool of tunable technology that allows you to have fruitiness forward, citrus forward, you know, spiciness forward, and you control all of those. And then the beauty of it all together is that we have it designed in an all-in-one solution, and then it's just making it easy as a 1, 2, 3 dosing downstream and all post-fermentation additions. So just to say, the hop inspiration would be the range of products so that you have an idea. It's over 180 products now already. What does that allow you to do is to tune that, is to actually have the full traceability to each variety you want, you know, making it easier for the supply chain as well. You know, not only proprietary varieties, but we'll basically focus our attention on taste and deliver that taste, because it's all about the sensor in the end. And you make it happen, and it requires some tunability, it requires some, you know, pilot trials, but collaboration with brewers, and this is what we showcase today. So very simple, and again, as long as we see the precursors, and you know, where I'll give you an example of a project we have in-house. Yeah, no one has a standardized method for tile analysis, so we're working on that. We have partnerships with research groups, universities, so that's our R&D program coming by with the long to medium term projects, so we'll be at the CBC or other conventions showcasing that, but it's all about, you know, driving that innovation that we need for such a traditional brewery as we know. Just to point out here, you know, sick of this, but you'll know that the portfolio, the point is that we will offer solutions across the brewing range, so whether you need it for the kettle, late hop addition or post-fermentation. So a lot of our products, as you know, especially the oil side, because we work as well with some soft and hard resins. Also within the pipeline for functionality, not only taste-driven, but also functionality coming into play. But I'll just invite you to explore this further and you know, share thoughts on how it's depending on your capability as well and volume size. So there will be a solution. This is I'm convinced. Just to before hand it over to Dave, which will showcase the first tasting. It's all about the dosing, having the possibility to downstream differentiate your worts. So you can call it, we call it wort harmonization, but you can have a bright beer towards a specialty style, you know, IPAs or anything. This is possibly from the hop side as well, and then you will combine the other malts and yeasts. It's whether it's for a dry hop efficiency or the whole brew, but also add other complexity. And with this, I think, yeah, we have the first tasting coming up. So Dave Hall is coming up, and on behalf of Chris Shelton from the Whole Foods Market Brewing, which unfortunately could not be here today with us, but we'll have Dave, which will shortly raise your appetite for this one.
I hope so.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Dave Hall. I'm Technical Sales Manager for Totally Natural Solutions. I've been in the hop industry for nearly 20 years now, so you know, I've seen a lot of things, but working with Totally Natural Solutions and these products just gives so much kind of flexibility in brewing. So with Whole Foods and Chris, he already produced a holistic IPA for Whole Foods just using Nectaron pellets, and we thought it'd be a great idea to showcase how Nectaron as a hop burst would do in the brew as a substitution for the dry hopping. So our hop burst products are dry hop kind of complementary or replacement products. So they're designed to be used, when we initially put them together, we designed them to go into the bright tank. But brewers being brewers, fantastic they are, they always experiment. So it kind of got moved and moved and moved. And we now kind of recommend that you use these products pretty much the same way as you'd use hops. So wherever you add that hop in the dry hop, add a hop burst, you'll get the same sort of profile out of those. So getting into the beer, we've used the Nectaron. It's been really popular over the last couple of years. People have been trying to get hold of it. So getting it into a hop burst format allows us to be able to reach more brewers with the same amount of hops that would be used just at normal and T90s and things. So for the holistic, it's a hazy double dry hopped IPA as a regular beer. So what Chris did differently here was he still added his bitter in as Warrior, just to give a very low bitterness. Some Nectaron in at the start of fermentation, and then instead of what he would usually do is have 2 dry hops, kind of a day apart, both at about 11 pounds in this 5-barrel brew. He put in hop burst Nectaron. Now he only added a very small amount, so that's 100 mils, 6.5 ounces into that 5.5-barrel brew, which is quite low. That's kind of the lower end of our dosing range. But what we got out, they're starting to hand out now, is the kind of beer itself. So we've tasted both, and they are slightly different, and Chris himself has mentioned they are very different beers, but not taking one away from the other. The one that's added the Nectaron Hop Burst really kind of showcases that pineapple character, and doesn't detract from any of the mouthfeel, any of the flavour. It's still really nice and hazy. So yeah, please enjoy, and we look forward to your feedback.
Still going around.
That's all right.
You mentioned that was on the lower end of the dosing rate.
Yes.
What's your normal dosing rate?
So we usually sort of recommend anywhere between 10 and 40 grams per hectolitre. So, about 12 grams a barrel as a low dose, and then go up. But it depends on the style and the amount of dry hop that you'd add. So that can go up to, 70, 80 if you needed to. The thing is with these, they are very technical products. So they don't behave in the same way as if you just add hops. You can overdose, and that's where you get that kind of negative effect. So to be able to, slowly increment till you get to that profile that you need, trials are always kind of advised with these things.
And what is the format of the oil itself?
So they're fully solubilized into a glycol carrier. So that allows the solubility to carry through, and you're not going to lose anything, through sight glasses or whatever as you add.
So you're just, in the dry hop, what do you guys recommend? You just literally just dump it in the tank up top? Like
Yeah, and they can be, the nice thing about these products are, and kind of Scott will go into it I think a little bit more, is they don't have to be one or the other. You can then really add and really pump up those characteristics without adding far too many hops. The losses and things that will start to come into that. So it does give you that option to really kind of just tune your beer to how you want it.
How stable are they once they're opened?
Once they're opened, they're aroma products, so they are going to want to try and escape. So air, oxygen is always an headspace of your enemies. So we sort of say about 3 months tops. There are things you can do to help that. If you want to put some CO2 or some nitrogen on the top just to get rid of that oxygen so you don't get any oxidation. But you will start to lose some of those aroma. You'll go back to a bottle, you'll open it kind of a couple of weeks later, and it'll smell fantastic. But that's everything escaping. You don't want it to kind of escape. You want to get it.
Is there any conditioning time, or is it as soon as you
They,
drop it essentially?
these are pretty much soluble. We usually say give it a couple of hours just to really settle into the beer. But again, if you're adding it into a dry hop, kind of very early or late stage fermentation, then just add it the same way and then give it the same time. just let those yeast go to work.
Can you add directly with Ray?
Sorry.
Can you just rack into it onto the Ray?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that will give you kind of options in terms of wort stream differentiation. So you could brew a single wort stream, and then if you had multiple bright tanks, you can change the characteristics depending on what products they are. And with hop bursts, they're all varietal specific. So, we always say as long as we can get hold of those varieties, we can produce the hop burst from it.
Do you need to agitate it once it's in the tank?
It's better to have some agitation just to help it kind of dissolve. It will go, it just take a little bit longer. So either, if you've got inline dosing, add it inline, or if you're going to do anything, say like in a bright tank, add the product to the bright tank first, then put the beer on top. And obviously that turbulence will help mix everything in.
Are there any differences between this and cryohops?
So cryohops will have everything. What we've done with these products is we've distilled the oil, so we're taking it away from any of the alpha, any of the polyphenolics, so there's no haze, there's no bitterness to add. It will just be pure flavour.
What's the overall shelf life on the bottle?
So for these, it's 2 years.
Now, does it drop off significantly after 2 years, or do you still be okay with using it?
If they've been stored airtight, they may still be okay, but obviously all hop will start to age over time, so it will start to drop off on its kind of aroma intensity.
Just for the crowd there, is there anyone with yeast with the first tasting from the stick? Okay. Just raise your hand.
So what's the feeling with the beer? Is it okay? Drinkable?
Delicious.
Good.
The only pellet hops are in the boil, or the bittering starts?
There's in the bittering and at the start of fermentation. So there's 11 pounds of Nectaron T90s in there, but then on his transfer to bright, after everything else has been done, that's when he adds the hop burst just to give it that real kind of punchy lift.
Are you seeing any sort of drift?
What, in terms of flavour stability and things?
No, like hop creep.
Hop creep? No, that's the really good thing about these products. There's no enzymes that get carried across in the distillation process, so there's no chance of any of that hop creep coming in.
Do you see like a substantial increase in stability of the beer as far as flavor goes compared to, say you only did T90 or you only did oil, like the old hop oils?
Yeah, I mean, without those kind of polyphenols going in, if you use just whole 100% hop oil products, then you get that extra stability. You don't get the drop-off in the flavour with the reaction with the aldehydes. So, yeah, it's kind of anywhere between an extra 3 to 6 months in beer. Okay. Well, now everyone's kind of had a chance to have that, then, I won't keep you any longer. We'll get Scott Janish up, and he'll take you through his beer, okay? Thank you.
As I bite my lip there, I wanted to try to answer some of those questions. So the reason I'm kind of here is I was working on an article a while back on just all the different what I call post-fermentation oils. So, those oils we can add to our beers after you have a chance to taste them. Like, they're pretty much packaged, they're ready to go, but they kind of need something else because you can still kind of doctor them at pretty much every stage of the process. So I gathered as many of the different oils as I could and kind of put them to test in small batch stuff. And honestly, like, my biggest complaint kind of across the board with all the oils is they smelled and tasted like oils. So if you've ever used oils like as like just like a bittering extract oil, like, it smells extracty, it smells green, it smells resinous. And when you put them in the beer, it translates pretty much the same way, just a little bit diluted. And so that's why I was so interested in these, is because it's the fractionalized process that can actually kind of control which compounds is actually getting into the oil, which is getting into your beer, because this is like an emulsified product. Like, it's already in solution, so if you're putting it in your beer, it's going to be in the beer, which, there's one of my papers that I like to look at is a Shellhammer paper where they just did some testing with actual pellets, so T90 pellets, to see what was actually extracting. And it's like myrcene, which can be like 70% of your hop total oil, was like less than 1% of that myrcene was actually getting into the beer. But if you're taking a hop extract that is replicating, so it's a citra oil, so you're replicating that citra profile, which is going to be 70% myrcene, but it's emulsified. That's 70% potentially that could get into your beer. So that's like at levels you're not going to get with dry hopping. And to me, that's not like a very realistic one-for-one kind of taste when it comes to dry hopping. So that ability to fractionalize that, to remove some of those hydrocarbons, which is where that myrcene is more a true way of like getting oil, dry hop character into your beer from oils. So that's where I was kind of more was guided more towards this process. So for the beer that we're passing out now, this is a 100% Nelson dry hop beer where we added the oils post fermentation. So I don't know if the recipe is up. Or,
Yeah.
So this is actually, we did a smaller version of it called Full Measure, and so of course when it comes to naming beers, you just do the easiest next thing, and so this is a double IPA called Fullest Measure. Whenever I'm using stuff, I know you mentioned doing it to like a flagship beer or something you're very familiar with, because then you can actually tell what you're getting from it. So we didn't change much when it comes to the grist here, and this is a pretty typical grist for us when it comes to hoppy beers. It's like 15% malted wheat, 15% like naked oats. We're usually around 5 or 10% chip malt, which I like a lot. And then we split 2-row and pills, and that's more, we're direct fire and we get more color than we want, so we add in a little pills. Let fermentation finish completely, soft crash to about 58, drop out all those hops, or drop out all the yeast, harvest if we want, and then we go down, for this beer we went down 45 degrees before dry hopping, and so we did it in 2 stages at 45, 2 burps a day, and the hops were off after like 4 days. We dropped them out of the bottom. And then added the oils, so this was about 400 mils in 20 barrels, so that's about where we've been with these. It's about 200 mils per 10 barrels. You can, the thing that you can do with this stuff too is if you have like a way to dose it into just a glass and kind of scale up, it's a good way to approach it. Because you mentioned like a little bit too much is like a lot too much. And so what I really would want from this is just like, it's a complexity builder. It's like another tool. It's like, maybe you don't love the spot hops you got, this is sort of like a builder. It's sort of it's not replacing the hops. It's just you're trying to make a better beer. I hope you're trying to make a better beer. And so for this one, we just did. We've tried it a bunch of ways on how to get it into the tank, and honestly, the easiest is we have valves in all of our side ports. Put a 45 on, and depending on how much you're putting in, put a sight glass on the 45. Purge that out, put like a pneumatic plug on there, just purge it a bunch, pour it in, try to do it so like you're filling that sight glass, and then pour in the oils, put the pneumatic plug on, purge that a whole bunch, and then just open up that valve and just let it rip in, and then just let it burp through for a little bit, and then carb. I don't know how much mixing you get from carbing, but in my mind it's going to hopefully help a little bit, and we haven't seen any sort of like stratification from it, like early cans being more hop or more like oil forward, or late ones being less. So that seemed to work for us. We also tried where you can just like put it in like a smaller keg if you have like a brink or something. Put it in there, purge that a bunch, backfill that brink, and then if you're transferring to a bright or something, just slowly pumping it in line as you're going into the bright. That's another way you can do it. So yeah, I don't know if you've had a chance to taste it. I think, so this beer that you have, those Nelson hops are 2 years old, and the beer was packaged over a month ago. And so hopefully the beer speaks well to that, and that it's, you know, still tasting, holding up pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. Happy to try to answer some questions on how we sort of approach it.
So you guys don't necessarily use this as a replacement for a dry hop, more like a top note?
Yeah, this beer was dry hopped at 5 pounds per barrel. We don't like to make money on our beer.
Have you ever tried to make it with just oil? Any experiment?
We have, so, you know, my business partner is Michael Tomsmeyer, who you might know. Wrote American Sour Beers and also was a blogger at the Mad Fermentationist. And so, like, we still have all of our homebrew gear at the brewery. And so we do a lot of, like, 5-gallon test batches where you were just stealing beer from our tanks. And we have done some, like, before we dry hop a big tank, we'll steal off 5 gallons, just put in the oil. And it's not the same. I mean, it's more interesting. It is a different beer. I mean, if you're gonna like split, you know, say you're doing 20 barrels of pills and you want to try, you know, 10 barrels with some oil just to make it a little more unique beer, I think that's probably doable. But it's not. You just get so much from hops themselves. You know, the polyphenols. You know, if you're doing like a T90, the vegetal materials, bringing something. There's a mouthfeel thing. It's just, it's not a replacement, but it is sort of just kind of a way to build in some complexity. And like I said, you just trying them with finished beers in a glass and seeing what you want. I think what I get, I don't know if you get it in this beer. There's like a, to me, there's like I can almost taste that there's oil in it. I mean, that's probably too close to these beers, but. There's like a lingering sort of a slickness to it, and I think that's potentially is a great thing, especially in lower ABV beers where you're missing some of that mouthfeel impact. Shelf life, you know, I'm always trying to look at studies and not just what people say when it comes to beers, and you know, there's one paper where they did actually test and found that there was less stealing aldehydes in a beer that had some of the oil. I would hope that gets tested more. I don't know if the beers or the oils are like keeping those aldehydes like you know, from freeing potentially. I don't really know what's going on there, but I do think there's a little bit more of a lasting sort of peakness to some of these. There's still a lot to learn, obviously.
TTV treat this just like hops?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that's how I've been operating.
When you add it to the fermenter, do you see like rousing out of the oil aromatics at all? Or?
When you add it, so like during fermentation.
Yeah.
Honestly, adding this during fermentation is a good way to. So we used the hop shot. The hot shot is the fractionalized one that has some of those greener compounds removed. I think that's more true to actual dry hopping. The hop burst, if I was adding the hop burst, and I don't want to step on your toes on how you want people to use them, but just kind of in my experiences, hop burst I would add during fermentation because that's a little greener. And I think, you know, having that in, first of all, it's easy. You can just add it to the top of the port during mid-fermentation. Active fermentation is going to drive out what I think are some of those like harsher hop compounds, those, you know, those woodier resinous ones. And so if I was using hop burst, that's probably how I would do it. And that driving out of some of those compounds, I think, in my opinion, is a good thing in that case. Which is the same like when you like certain hops that are really aggressive with T90s. That's like the only time I'll really ever do active fermentation dry hopping is when you're trying to drive out some of those harsher top notes from hops. So I think, yeah, the active fermentation would probably drive out some of the volatiles. Yeah.
Do you guys see any kind of like pH being affected by this?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't done I mean, obviously, like dry hopping will raise your pH. I would imagine this would be very subtle because you're not adding a lot. So I don't think you get a big pH change, but I haven't done like a pre and post pH reading from the hops.
Do you found any impact on yeast health after using any of the oils?
No, because we haven't ever added it to a beer that was active fermentation and then harvested. But I think that's probably a safer way to do it than adding hops, to active fermentation and then trying to harvest that yeast. I would be more comfortable harvesting yeast that just had the oils. I imagine the yeast would take some of those oils with them, but I'd be curious to do a cell count after it, but I would think it would probably be fine. Probably a good way to build in a little like early hop flavor too if you're doing it that way.
How consistent, lot to lot with T90s can vary dramatically. So products like this, have you seen more consistency throughout?
I think so. Honestly, they're so concentrated that it's when you smell them, it's almost like over the top. And so like the Nectaron, like we were calling like the super ester one, to me is like one of the fruitier ones out of it. They all still smell pretty extracty. I think it's that dilution in the beer to really open them up to more of a true hop smell. But because they're so concentrated, I don't think I'm sensitive enough to say, yeah, that's different from another vial.
Pretty consistent.
Yeah, I would think so.
We do, sorry to jump in on this,
Yeah.
but yeah, we do look to try and create a stability of those, so, any variation year to year or even, farm to farm. Our QC kind of panel will look at that and try and keep it as consistent and reject anything that's kind of out of that sort of specification that we allocate to a certain variety.
It's almost as if you could take T90s and alter the oil makeup after harvesting.
I was working with this extract versus other extract products in the market for you, whether it be workability or finished product consistency you're happy.
Just to be completely honest, like workability is pretty similar. I mean, if they're emulsified oils, they're just easier to get in. You're not adding, ethanol, or you're not going to the liquor store at 8 a.m. to get a whole bunch of like vodka or something, but to mix with it. But they're pretty easy to mix in. Again, I think the biggest difference is that the ability to alter the oil makeup, and to me, that's I don't like to just put something in a beer. I don't want another step either. Like there's enough steps in brewing, and that's another opportunity to add. Oxygen could get in, or whatever the case. So I'm trying to improve the beer, and this is kind of like of the oils is the one that I thought was more true to a hop, actual dry hopping. Again, that's only if you're getting it in the amount that it kind of hits the sweet spot, because like anything, you can overdo it.
What does that taste like?
When you overdo it,
Yeah.
it's like a hop extract.
From a sustainability perspective, how many milliliters of said oil are you extracting from about, say, 11 pounds of T90? Or
Pounds.
It depends on the variety, but we realise 100% of the oil from the hop. So, in terms of utilisation, we can utilise all of that oil. Obviously with dry hopping, there's varying kind of utilisations and abilities. So, it'll go, we tend to sort of round it to about 3 times the amount of beer a hop product could touch compared to an equal amount of hops.
Am I to understand the difference then is that all these hydrocarbon-based terpenes that really don't end up in your final beer now actually end up in your final beer, so the utilization of the available molecular groups that typically would be in your hops are actually getting used, whereas they're only wasted?
Yeah.
Do you select the hops for the oils, or how does that work?
Yield to start first. You want to get?
Yeah, and we look to create partnerships like we've done with New Zealand hops, with kind of growers, and work on getting that quality and consistency through them, so it makes our life a hell of a lot easier.
Do you have any experience with NA beers, dosing to get that kind of green resiny thing back into the bright?
Yeah, we do, and we also, without diverting too far in, we have products that fit within that low alcohol space that will stabilise the base, and then you can build on with the other hot products in terms of building flavours, aromas, all the bitterness, everything.
Yeah, and just to complement, it's about the functionality as well for the 0.0. So you would have a toolkit of this where you can use as a building block. So whether to increase mouthfeel, which is key, whether to bring up bespoke or biofermented or the byproducts from fermentation, we can standardize those as well to have that character built in through a dosing post-fermentation, as well as masking the worthy notes. This is one biggest one we have, as well as bringing crispiness. Not only from polyphenols, but a fraction of hop that can do that. And it's really interesting what we find, that whether it's not driving taste, then we'll look for the added value in terms of functionality, and that's what we still an ongoing projects to cut, and what you find beneath the hydrocarbons. And then the myrcene is just beautiful. And sometimes we hit checks, but no, ultimately the feedback has been really terrific. I mean, the trademark is Hop Zero, so, and then we'll have a few in our booth, so we can have that. It's absolutely key for Europe now, mainly.
I'm looking forward to the file work that they're going to do, because like if these contain free thiles, then obviously they're great for post fermentation, but even more interesting to me is if they contain thiol precursors, then these could be incorporated in a mash with some of those bioengineered strains. So like that's
absolutely key for fruitiness. Yeah, fruitiness has been the hot topic for the last decade, and that's the beauty with NZ, with this Nectaron especially. You find those. We know it. We have a fingerprint profile. We do that every time. Like Dave said, is simple, but it's still an investment. You can find the analytical. You have to run HPLC, GC, and then constantly evaluating those fractions. But that's what is distinct about this, and that's how we make unique value out of Nectaron and other flagships from New Zealand. I really appreciate Scott. Then great taste anyway.
Recyclability of like what the product comes in, like containers and stuff. What does the product come in? Can you recycle that?
Sorry, can you speak up?
Can you recycle the
Well, they're aluminium flasks,
Okay.
so they can be recycled.
I think there was a question back there.
What would you list this as on a label claim?
Labeling. How do you label it?
It's just the hop. Yeah. I mean, it's like, so they're hop specific, right? So it's Citra.
Yep, they're varietal specific.
Citra
With the glycol, does that have to be considered a natural flavor?
No.
No, it's a food grade carrier.
Food grade carrier, so it doesn't go into the requirements. So you're absolutely fine to hop, oil, extract on your label. As Scott says, you can put the variety as well.
Solubility, self-preservation, it's easier.
Other questions?
Do you have any experience with kind of the opposite end of the spectrum of more noble characteristics? I know everything is really fruit forward these days, but I mean, I think there could be some cool things with getting more noble character out of this without vegetable material.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any hop varieties that kind of fit that bill that have been oiled.
Yeah,
Was it
I
more
mean,
noble?
the best example for us is the SARS. SARS is, you stand up to me. But SARS oil kind of yields have been coming down kind of year on year as global warming and things kind of happening. So it becomes harder and harder, or more and more expensive to create the same amount of product from hop year on year. So what we've got is we're able to fractionate hops. We're able to break them down into kind of component parts, and then that allows us to rebuild into different varieties almost. We call, they're kind of Frankenstein's monsters. We call them types. So Sart's type is built from a more kind of a higher oil content hop, a bit more sustainable, so you're using less material. But you couldn't tell the difference between that and a normal SARS type product.
Does the sauce have alpha acids in the extract?
No.
So that's what's interesting to me, because I'm always trying to get more flavor into beers without them being more more bitter. So you could add some of that in the kettle or whirlpool just to try to build in more hop flavor before fermentation, without worrying about a bitterness impact.
My next question, I've used a lot of products from BSG in the past. Comes a little can, you poke a hole in it and drop it in your whirlpool. Differences between your product and something like that, would that be low alpha acids and such?
I mean, the difference really is like that. Since it's emulsified, it would just pour right in. You wouldn't have to like heat up the can like you would some of the other extracts.
Okay.
And they tend to be post-fermentation, so all cold side additions rather than hot side.
Okay.
Was there another question in the back?
Can you fractionate the alpha acid fractions?
To have some in?
We can. We have alpha acid products, so bittering products tend to be isomerized ones. We also do a natural version of it as well. So rather than industrially bittering products, post-fermentation bittering products have catalysts in there, or chemically changed to create some of these interesting characteristics some of the bittering products can have. We could do that. We've worked out a way. I mean, it happens naturally in the kettle anyway. It's just not very efficient. We've managed to work a way to get that efficiency up. We can then isolate those isoalpha acids and just give you a standardised bittering product that's been naturally produced rather than anything else.
How available are these products? Do you have plenty of inventory? Is there a long lead time shipping from New Zealand?
No, we work in advance, so we have good stocks of all the oils, and then it's within a couple of weeks we can get product out to wherever in the world. We supply globally, so we can get it anywhere that needs to go.
So you said about 2 years.
Yes.
You said the shelf life is about 2 years. How soon, if you ordered it, how deep into that 2 years is it already?
It'll be pretty fresh within, a good 2 or 3 months tops, really. We don't tend to hang them around. The nice thing is we can have the oils. They're pretty stable. They'll be happy. We then formulate almost to, not quite to order, but we'll have a stock we can send out.
The few times that we've used them, we just order for that beer, or 2 beers.
But just give us a little bit of time. Don't go to the shelf when you want to use it and ask us to get it there next day.
All brewers are great planners.
Calculating like IBUs or calculated IBUs on your bitter products.
Yep.
Pretty seamless in terms of being able to calculate that ourselves and translate that product.
Yeah, and we've got a great calculator that will just work out how much to add to get your precise BU addition.
Okay.
Do you find this product stays through like any centrifuge or filtration process if you're using clear beer?
I have a theory.
We've actually done some work with Paul on the filtration side of things, and filters will hold on to certain kind of hop compounds anyway. But the beauty with the hop products is, if you have it either side and there's a drop off, you just kind of slightly over add before the filtration, and then by the time it comes through, it's fine.
There's one paper that comes to mind that looked at centrifuging hoppy beers and what compounds were in before and what compounds were in after. And it's kind of what you would imagine. It's the more volatile compounds that the centrifuge was removing. So that's the myrcene and the stuff I think you kind of want not in high levels anyways. And like the monoterpene alcohols weren't affected as much. Those are the fruitier compounds, and the thiols also weren't impacted as much. So those were left behind. So I would imagine that would be very similar with the oils. If you centrifuged after, that you would probably have some of those, the greener the greener leaning compounds from the extract probably being stripped. But it's a theory.
If I could take one more question, guys, then we can wrap up. No, please go ahead.
What do we have for package sizing? Does this make sense for smaller breweries?
Yep, so, you know, we
How
have,
small is that?
yeah, the small packs, which are kind of 15 mil, there's a box of those. So they'll do about a barrel each. Pedro's got the 100 mil size of the nectar on there. And then we kind of go 1 litre, 5 litre, 20 litres really, as standard pack sizes.
Just 20 gram an egg.
Yeah.
20 gram an hectoliter.
Perfect.
It's metric, sorry.
How's,
One more, Dan, go ahead, sir.
how does the cost compare to using regular hops? How is that cost factor? Is
So-
it cost effective or same?
Not in Scots beers, no.
How would you?
But he brings something else.
It's all about that rating, right?
There's a couple of kind of strings to that. You know, if you're just doing kind of partials, the products costing you, you know, you can save between sort of 10 and 50%. But it's also, you get beer back. You know, you're not getting those dry hop losses if you kind of start to substitute. So, you know, the yields, as you say, do start to then pay even more dividends kind of going forward.
All right.
All right, I'll stop
Keep it
talking.
going. Yeah, how about a big round of applause for everyone? Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Please come to our booth 3437 and
1053.
1053. Come ask some questions and come taste beer. Everybody enjoy the show. Thank you so much.